MLB DFS picks Monday night, June 24th. What pitchers do we want? What pitchers do we want to target? Spencer Bivens. Very interesting story. Google the kid up. Pitched in Europe for years, semi-pro leagues. The Giants noticed him, and he's been really good in the minors, worked his way up. He's not a kid anymore. He's almost 30 years old. Looks pretty good so far. Now, that might be a little too much heart over mind, but hey, it's hard not to root for the kid. Gets to face the Cubs. He strike out 24% of the time. It's been pretty good in relief work. Garrett Crochet, don't want him against the Dodgers. Tanner Houck dug deeper into this. This is a back-to-back against Toronto, so if you were like, oh, I just faced them a week ago, and he wasn't particularly good in that last, I mean, he's okay. 5 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, but nothing you'd really want to pay up for. Main pitches are the sinker and splitter, and we'll go a little deep on that in a second. But you look at his baseball savant numbers, they're great. His ground ball rate is good, which you expect from a guy that throws splitters and sinkers. The one concern I have is that Toronto, I just don't see the points being there. And the reason why is I think they're going to put the ball in play and just be okay. You don't have a huge strikeout rate for Toronto. And if you look at Toronto, we dig even deeper into the fan graphs and we look and see how they face up against sinkers. 13th, they're pretty much average. So it's not a below average team against a sinker. And that's why he probably wasn't as dynamic in that matchup. And then if we also look up splitters, I think they're pretty much middle of the road against that pitch as well. Actually, they might be a little bit, oh no, actually they're at the bottom for the splitter. So if you dig even deeper and you look like, well, why doesn't he just lean on the splitter more? And he didn't really, he did increase it from the game before and threw more splitters, but you'd like to see it be a little bit higher considering they're not very good against the sinker. So maybe a little less sinkers, a little bit more splitter, and Tanner Houck has some upside. But if that's what he did in the last matchup, I don't think he's really going to change his approach, and he'll take his 5 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, and move on and not really care about what the DFS community wants. So I don't know if we get the upside that you might be looking for there. Bradley's not on the slate. Cole Reagans is the guy that we absolutely are going to love. And obviously all of his numbers check out. 10.7 Ks per 9 in 86 innings pitched. Good ground ball rate, the ERA checks, the xFIP checks, and he's facing Miami, which does not have an offense. 68 WRC plus versus left-handed pitching. Now, they don't strike out as much, but that is on average. That's against average lefties. When you face an elite lefty, I don't think Reagans is going to have any trouble at all. He has a smoking hot fastball, and Miami not good against fastballs, and that's generally the rule when we have a bad offense. One of the reasons the offense is bad or poor or weak is they're not hitting fastballs. And typically the best offenses can hit fastballs. And we go and see Miami's second worst. They may not strike out a lot, but they're not going to produce runs in this matchup, and Reagans will probably go pretty deep. You look at his last game, 6 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts. I think he's the chalky, easy play of the slate. Peralta is going to be an option. Texas, not very good against right-handed pitching. 93 WRC plus, below average WOBA. ISO, below average. Doesn't strike out a lot. And one of the things that's going to hurt Peralta is that one of his big put-away pitches is the changeup. And again, if we go back and we're digging real deep, Texas, I believe, is about middle of the road when it comes to hitting changeups. Yeah, so not a huge advantage for him. And if we lose some of those strikeouts, I would much rather go with Reagans in that situation, although we have no problem typically targeting Texas. Don't want to go after Baltimore. Detroit's not on the slate. What do I got on Steele? Steele had a pretty good June. His last outing, he had 8 strikeouts. So in his 3 starts in June, he has been pretty strong. San Francisco, though, does hit left-handed pitching pretty well. So that is a concern. I don't think you really have to go there. But it is worth making a note that Steele's been good this month and is coming off a pretty strong start. Plus, you also have the ballpark upgrade in San Francisco. Really like Brian Wu a lot. And when I was looking at this, I was like, I don't know about this guy. 165 BABIP, that can't be maintained. 85% strand rate, 107 ERA. I don't know. But when you dive into what Brian Wu has done in the minors and what he's doing now, boy, it's looking pretty real. And he gets a terrific matchup at Tampa, against Tampa, 24% K rate, 128 ISO. The WOB is 297. This guy is basically Framber Valdez 2.0, maybe even better. And I know maybe I'm getting a little too early on, but look at the pitch run value, the fastball run value. He's not walking batters. He's not allowing barrels. You know, part of me says, I don't know if it's maintainable because he doesn't strike a lot of guys out. Well, that's just not his game. He doesn't walk anybody either. So he obviously has strong control. He knows what he is doing. And what he's doing is not trying to strike out every batter. He is an elite sinker ball pitcher. And maybe he doesn't pile up the Ks, but boy, he has looked really good this year. And I think that you can definitely, let's see. So he is a sinker ball pitcher, four seamer, sinker ball mainly, really elite stuff there. And so we look and see Tampa against the sinker. What do you think? What are we going to get out of these guys? And down towards the bottom of the league. And then obviously, when an offense isn't very good, they're probably not going to be that great against fastballs either. Again, in the bottom third of the league, really good matchup. I like going to Woo a lot as well. Reagans and Woo. Bassett has been really strong over his last 6 starts. Boston is hitting pretty well, 172 ISO, 332, but they do strike out. And they are coming off a series where they really didn't put up a lot of runs in Cincinnati when they had the opportunity. They just didn't play well. And Bassett, last 6 starts, he has a 150 ERA. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. It's worth considering. You might want to explore it. Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, a soft spot in my heart. Can't help it. I always want to play Matt Waldron. Matchups don't really matter. Like, well, Washington's not really that great of an offense. It doesn't really matter. The knuckleball can work against good defense or good offenses, and it can fail against bad offenses. But overall, he has been an elite knuckleballer, up in the conversation with R.A. Dickey type of stuff. And I've talked about it before on the podcast, and I'll probably will write about it in my free DK Network article. Maybe not. I write about Waldron too much. But he is really unique in that he's not just leaning on the knuckleball with every pitch like a Dickey or like a Tim Wakefield. This guy has a full arsenal. And batters can't sit on specific pitches because he only throws the knuckle probably like 43% of the time. He's throwing a regular smorgasbord of pitches, and it really keeps hitters off balance. Now, as is always the case with a knuckleballer, sometimes the thing doesn't knuck and it goes over the wall. You just got to deal with that and accept that if you're going to roster him. Lance Lynn, bad in his last 3 starts, so maybe you want to consider taking Atlanta. Yeah, you probably should. I should have Atlanta highlighted. Why did I not highlight Atlanta? That would be one of my stacks. Not pitching well of late. Last start, he allowed 10 hits, 5 earned runs in 5 innings. Definitely a place to attack. Rodri Munoz. Wow, this guy has been a mess. Decent strikeout numbers in the minors and decent strikeout numbers now, but he walks way too many batters. And look, he's got a 4.56 ERA, 4.22 xFIP, but these numbers could be even worse, and they probably will get worse. He has a home run problem. We don't have a lot of innings, just 25, but in those 25, 2.8 home runs per 9. He is a fly ball pitcher, so that is going to result in a BABIP that is lower than most guys. So we'll never expect his BABIP to get to the 300 range because he simply is a fly ball pitcher. But it should come up some. And so when those balls start to fall in play, right? So 179, the balls that are hit only a 179 average. That's ridiculous. Mendoza line style. He's not going to be facing Mendoza every time. Eventually, balls are going to fall into play, and he's going to allow even more runs. And then also, he's not going to strand every runner. 91% strand rate. Eventually, he's going to have trouble getting out of jams. So that number is going to decrease, and bad things will happen. Just basically every number screams yikes. Oh, and by the way, now I know the matchup, and actually the matchup's pretty bad too. The guy is walking too many batters, and he's facing a pretty patient team that puts the ball in play in Kansas City. I think Kansas City is hot over the last, or whether they're actually pretty cold, and they're striking out a lot, but this is a great get right spot for Kansas City against the lefty. Yeah, I mean, you look at Munoz and old Rodri, he's been blown up in basically every start except the one where we thought he shouldn't do well. The Mets have hit left-handed pitching really well and are playing really well of late, and for whatever reason, they couldn't get to old Rodri. But everywhere else, he has absolutely struggled. Mize is not on slate. Carson Spires is worth some consideration, although this is a back-to-back against Pittsburgh, and it will be in Cincinnati. That is a bit of a concern, but he's looked halfway decent. He is a serviceable option. If he is affordable, I wouldn't completely rule him out because he's facing Pittsburgh. 25% K rate, 123 ISO, 284 WOBA, 81 WRC plus versus right-handed pitching, and they've been cold. Pittsburgh, they're going to get a park upgrade, and sometimes we consider them versus lefties, but they're not that good against right-handed pitching. So I definitely think you can take Spires. Was really phenomenal in that spot where he had to fill in for Frankie Montas. In his start last week at Pittsburgh, just okay. He did. So these numbers are a little bit exaggerated, I think, because it's working in some of his relief work. No, I guess he did last 7 innings. One earned run. No, I don't think that is factoring in his actual last start. I believe that is factoring in the previous outing where he was phenomenal in relief against the Cubs. Spencer Schwellenbach, talked about him before. Injuries at Atlanta. So the prospect jumped from Double-A to the pros. Had some tough matchups, was good in a tough matchup, bad in a tough matchup, but last time out, he faced Detroit, so got a soft one, and he went 6 innings, and he only allowed 1 run, and he struck out 7. The matchup's a little bit better, but not the toughest team that he has faced. The Cardinals are not world beaters by any stretch of imagination. Again, that 632, tough matchups could kind of hurt that number. Also, some bad luck here with just not getting out of jams. But when we get softer matchups for the rookie, I think you're going to like it. Bailey Falter is bad. Doesn't strike any batters out. You need to strike people out. He's been very fortunate to maintain this ERA. XFIP says otherwise. Again, he's benefiting from a BABIP that's pretty low. Now, again, as I mentioned before, with flywheel pitchers, they're always going to have BABIPs that are a little bit lower because balls fly over the fence. Balls, flying gloves, ground ball pitchers typically bleed out more and give up more of a higher batting average, but I expect that to kind of increase. And 1.4 home runs per 9, Cincinnati at Cincinnati. Yeah, I like that play. Although, you don't get some of that left-handed power that we like. De La Cruz from the right side's not quite as strong. Another place to target is, as always, Patrick Corbin, but I will note that he has been good in his last 2 outings. His last game, he went 5 innings, struck out 7, only 1 earned run, but his last 2 matchups were versus Detroit and Arizona struggles with left-handed pitching. San Diego hasn't been great against left-handed pitching, but San Diego's heating up, and the general rule is always stack against Patrick Corbin. Can't fault you there. Michael Lorenzen's just been an average pitcher because he is an average pitcher. He walks a lot of batters, does not strike a lot of guys out, and he's facing Milwaukee. That's trouble. If you are going to be able to deal with Milwaukee, you need to take advantage of their K rate. I don't believe he's going to be able to do that. Another guy who is benefiting from a little bit of a low BABIP, benefiting from a above average strand rate. You can see those numbers come down, and eventually this 286 ERA is going to turn more into what it should be by 462 xFIP. We'll get there eventually. This could absolutely be the spot. Milwaukee is a hitter's ballpark. Again, if you're walking people, not striking out people, and have kind of been lucky, then, bad things are going to happen. Griffin Canning, not a good pitcher. Again, same situation, doesn't K people, walks people. If it was to work against Oakland, I can't believe we're saying let's play Oakland in this matchup, but I think this is one of the times you might be able to save some money going after Oakland because Canning's just not good. 4.99 xFIP, 4.76 ERA, 1.6 home runs per 9. Again, he doesn't strike people out. We got a pretty good sample size here. The 2-7 pitcher, 75 innings. Doesn't strike you out. He walks you. Yeah, he's got a good matchup where he could succeed, but also Oakland has a good matchup where their poor offense could succeed. I'll take Oakland in that spot and try to find some value. Not messing with targeting Cleveland's offense. James Paxton, somehow 6-1 with a 544 xFIP. Dodgers dealing with injuries. He's in the rotation. His overall numbers doesn't look good. 5.3 Ks per nine and a 4.8 walks per nine in 59 innings. At least he's not giving up a lot of home runs. But, those numbers are scary. But he still is 6-1 on the year somehow. And he draws a terrific matchup. Now, we don't like the ballpark, but it's Chicago versus a lefty, 24% K rate, 129 ISO, 288 WOBA, WRC plus of 84, ice cold over the last week. Yeah, the park's a concern, but he's not giving up home runs. And he's somehow making it work. And he's been really good in his last two outings. And if we are worried about ballpark, well, he just pitched in Colorado, struck out 8, allowed 1 earned run over 7 innings. Oh, well, the Rockies aren't that good. Well, the White Sox are probably worse. And honestly, though, the Rockies have been scoring runs on everyone of late. The only person that shut them down was James Paxton. So their hot bats were cooled off by Paxton, and I would definitely put him in consideration. Luis Medina, we talked about him several times before. Supposed to be a good prospect, but just struggles with control, and you can see that here with a 4.7 walk rate, and he doesn't strike batters out. He has the stuff to strike out a lot of hitters, but he lacks so much control that he can't strike them out because he's always down in the count. He can't use any of his stuff because he can't locate his stuff. And that results in walks, and he's just bad. 56% strand rate, but it is a decent matchup against the Angels, who 23% K rate, below average, cold of late, and he actually had a pretty good start in his last start. He didn't strike anybody out again, but he didn't allow but just 1 earned run across 5 innings, and I dug in as deep as I could, and it looked like he was getting good first pitch strikes. He was getting ahead in the count, and he wasn't getting into a situation where he's walking. He still did issue 2 walks, but he had better location and was able to get through the game. I don't know if you need to go there. I don't know what the price tag is going to be on him because I'm recording this early. But if he is incredibly cheap, he did improve from his last start. The matchup works out. The stuff is there if he can just locate. I don't think he's this bad, 5.9 to 4.7. He is bad, but I think he can be better and is worth considering. That should do it. Thanks for watching the video. Like, subscribe, share. Hope you enjoyed the breakdowns. It's always fun to look at all the different how teams match up against specific pitches and look at what guys are throwing. But to wrap up, it's Reagan's, it's Woo. I always like playing Waldron. And there's several pitches that I talked about here that you could possibly consider. And then I think the targets are all pretty interesting. And then, hey, before you get out of here, go Google up Spencer Bivens and read the story. It's very interesting.